everyone. We are live once again every week at 12. Get Resource with Summer and Dre, where we talk anything all about relationships, relationship to self, source, and others. And check us out on YouTube Live. We are on YouTube Live at Get Resourced. That's where we're going live. We're also live on Facebook as well, though we want you to be on YouTube because that helps us support the channel. It helps gets the views out so that the message, what's shared, is brought into more people's hands and eyes and ears and so forth. So if you're on YouTube, check us out on there. We will love for your support. Summer,
Good. Good morning, Dre.
Grand
I'm
Rising.
so excited for today. I am excited that we're going to talk about triggers and
Well,
how to navigate
before
them.
before we get there, I want to check in with you first.
Oh, I
Let's
was
always do a check
going to
in.
do that with you too. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to actually check in with you first.
Now, so what's most
What's
alive?
alive in you today, Dre?
Yeah. What's most alive in me today is just the gratitude and thankfulness that I have through my experiences this Samana. Um, Samana meaning week, just to be in this work and really get in touch with humanity. And this humanity is so beautiful. The vulnerability of the shares and the openness allows me to get a glimpse of the human condition, and it gives me a glimpse of myself that's in it. And so I'm so full. My needs for growth, learning, self-expression are being met right now. Yeah,
Mm.
that's where I'm at. And what
Mm.
about you? What's most alive in you right now?
Similar place, just this excitement for humanity and the unveiling of people are sharing things in new ways that make me see the beauty of mankind and the growth in it and the way of expressing things in our human condition, like you said, is just becoming so much more life-giving in the communities that we're in. And I think it's just gonna spread like a
Mhm.
virus. I'd add that
Yeah,
in there.
the love virus. Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Mm.
Yeah, so I feel enlivened, excited, exuberant. Yeah, all those things.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And what we'll be talking about today, Summer?
We're going to talk about one of our favorite topics, triggers as teachers, what triggers really are, what our nervous system does when we're triggered. And the reason why we're talking about it today is it's so live. We had our 7th class of one of our conscious communication classes, and the student shares and the amazing things that happened in the class and the things that we learned as well as the students is just so profound. So I'm excited to share.
Yeah. And we call it, there's a quote by Rumi that we love to reference, and it's in the world of nonviolent communication as well, as out beyond the ideas of right doing and wrongdoing, there's a field, and I'll meet you there. And it's not an actual physical field. It can be. It's more of an energetic field of beyond right doing and wrongdoing is beyond judgment. And get to that space of like, am I in the field with my partner, with my family, or am I in the trenches? you
Yeah.
know, when I think about the trenches, like or one, right? Just hunker down or shooting bullets. And these bullets are judgments, right? These bullets are diagnoses, labeling, objectifying,
Mhm. Name calling.
shame, blame, name calling. Exactly, exactly. So it's a quick check-in of like, yeah, am I heading into work in a war zone? Am I in the trenches right now with my kids, with my wife, with my husband? It's a good check-in question, isn't it? Because I know that when I'm in the trenches, I'm in fight or flight. Like I'm anxious, I'm stressed, I'm fearful, walk around eggshells, right? Afraid to say my truth, so to speak. And so it's like, oh no, it doesn't matter if I know conscious communication, right? If I speak it, it's going to come out sideways because my body language, my tone is going to reflect that I'm in the trenches, that I'm angry, that I'm resentful, that I'm anxious, right? So it's just that recognition of like, am I coming into the space in the field beyond the ideas of right doing or wrong doing, or am I in the trenches with you?
Right. Hey.
Yeah,
I don't know what that is. Can I get a shout out? I don't know what that is. Subby World. Ah.
yeah. CB World, welcome.
Hello.
Yes, the Blue Yeti microphone. Exactly. Great eye. Welcome.
Yeah, so triggers, what are they really, right? I kind of like to touch base on that. It's when our traumas are reignited, really. When our nervous systems get inundated by information we don't know how to process. And it's you can't use nonviolent communication, conscious communication when you're triggered. So, how is it that we're able to regulate our bodies? And one of our students had one of the most amazing comments yesterday because she said that she was triggered for the last 2 weeks of the class, which makes it really hard to use communication skills. But as we have this way of learning in our head, and then we have a way of learning that's in our body. And that's what people really mean when they say embody, to be embodied. M means in the body. And through her process, she recognized that her body could assimilate and learn information and then allow her mental and emotional minds and being to catch up. And so conscious communication is less about what we say and what we are able to feel in our bodies, the presence and how we show up in that energetic space, that field that I believe we all can feel, but we've been sidetracked by trying to outthink things or judge things or make up stories, because that's what most of us do when we're in relationship. We make up assumptions of why people are behaving the way they're behaving. So this is about embodying, being in our body to become conduits to source through our emotions. And this is what I truly believe empaths can do. A lot of empaths will say, oh man, I take on so much people's energy and I don't know what to do with it. So then I have to like cut them off or ghost them or put up boundaries against them. And I think this is a really misgiven idea that we have, because when we're trying to stop people from doing things, it creates a lot of resistance. And in doing that, we actually lose power. And it's not necessary. So there's a way to allow energy to move through our bodies when we're triggered that gives us insight, that helps us and the other person simultaneously. It doesn't have to be an us, they, them thing. It's a field beyond the ideas of right and wrong doing. Oh, that person, I need to set up boundaries. I need to make them go away. It's a field of energy that transforms both people who show up in it. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah. Triggers are really our teachers, you know? It's a gift. Because when I'm activated, when I'm reactive, when I'm angry, triggered, right? It's something for me to look at within myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rather than put the blame on or ignore it. No, I treat it as a gift because that allows me to get in touch with myself. Now, if someone did something that was super annoying to someone, but isn't to me, then it just flows right through me, right? Because I've worked with it. There's that space of compassion because I always see myself in other people. If they're doing something that's triggering me, it's because that reminds me of me,
Yeah,
right?
but I
I,
don't
I would
admit
probably, I, I'd probably be angry at myself and annoyed at myself if I did the exact same thing if that person was doing that triggered me, right? So it's a pure mirror reflection, and so Getting to the space of the trenches, can you explain what the trenches are for us?
Oh, the trenches. Well, yeah, I mean, we all have heard of the trenches. We call them entrenched patterns. And when people, soldiers, go to war, they dig trenches. And it's a metaphor we like to use for triggers because people usually, there's two different types of people in a relationship. One is in the trench, hunkering down, usually in avoiding, and then the other one is usually, which is in our relationship, me, more of the come on out of that trench and talk about this right now. And there's a lot of judgments and overwhelming energy coming, which feels like bullets. We're at war with each other with mental, emotional judgments and weaponry that we use. And so the idea is, how can we get out of our weaponed, judgmental, triggered mindset to come out of the trench in a way that meets people in the field of compassion, of neutrality, of the space where our body is this open conduit. Dre likes to call it a hollow bone or hollow bamboo, where it's just this conduit to truth, to what's showing up in the energetic space. What is disharmonious to my soul, to my heart, to my body that causes adrenaline or cortisol to start streaming? And how can we, by being present, identify what it is that we're needing? And it's actually super easy because needs are those words that describe the life-serving energy that motivates and sustains us. We are these sentient beings that are energetically informed. Our emotions are data, like Dre said. It's data, it's information that something isn't quite life-giving to us. We've got that sickening feeling in our stomach. We've got this headache. We have all these physical symptoms that show up because our emotions are overwhelmed and we're trying to do these weird denials, weird things, popping Tylenols and trying to go about our day without stopping to, as Dre says, become a self-cleaning oven, to clean out our emotions, to acknowledge ourselves, to give us self-care so that we don't go and take that out and trigger it on somebody else that we love. So how do we become a self-cleaning oven? How do we recognize our emotions so that somewhere down the line, we're not triggered in a way, well, even if we are triggered, it's truly opportunities and gifts, isn't it, to heal?
Mhm.
Dre.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Right. And, I like into myself of like, if I'm angry with my parents because they're resentful, then the way I look at them is someone that doesn't have my best interests. I look at them as an enemy to not trust, because if I share something, it seems like they're going to weaponize it and criticize me. So I'm not going to share it with them. I'm in the trenches with them. I'm short with them. I have a less patience, and that's because my body is in a fight or flight state. So there's a recognition of, okay, if I'm around my parents, I'm walking around eggshells. That means that I want to get the heck out of there. I don't feel safe, right? They're not my parents, they're my enemy. So my mind is telling me all these stories and these judgments to protect me. Mm. It's like a predator. Like, stay away. You're endangering my safety. So when I recognize that in my body, I know that whatever I say or do from the state, it's going to come out sideways. Like, it's like we're going to war. So it's a recognition of, breathing, regulating is so key. It's telling my body that it's safe, that I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be fine. It's not a saber-tooth tiger here. It's my parents, you know, and I know they love me deep down. So it's like telling my body that it's okay. I'm okay. That way, I get out of the saboteur mode of those judgments and labels, and I'm able to separate myself from that. I become an observer. I call it The idea of like sometimes my saboteurs, like my judge, is driving the vehicle and I'm not in shotgun. I'm not in the passenger seat. I'm locked in the trunk and the judge is driving instead of me driving the vehicle, right? So it's like letting my saboteurs run the show. So when I breathe, when I regulate myself, I'm able to become a fruit salad, right? I see all the parts of me and I observe it rather than being a fruit smoothie, being blended with all my parts and not being able to differentiate who's what and who's there, right? So that's the key part is, oh, I am in the trenches by what? I'm stressed, I'm fearful, I'm anxious, right? I'm exhausted. These are cues and signs for me to notice. Take a pause, breathe. Breathing is my favorite. Do a 4-7-8 breathing technique. 4-second inhale, 4-second or 7-second pause, 8-second exhale. Regulate the body, then be able to see more clearly, right? So I always find out it was the first step for me to get out of the trenches is to regulate.
Mm, right. How do we start paying attention to when we're not regulated? Because our relationships don't go well when that happens. And it's just something we're not been taught, is it? We don't know
No.
when we feel anger. We don't know what causes what. We have no idea. We have very low vocabulary for feelings. Good, mad, bad, sad. And then when you ask people what they need, it's like, I have needs? No, 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 that's selfish. I can't ask for anything.
Mhm. Yeah. And I just been taught how to handle it based on how my caretakers handle, in this case, my mom and dad. It's modeled, right? It's mirrored. What they do is what I do in my relationships until I catch it, right? And they say that the reason why the people that are closest to me are the most triggering is because we have history, right? I mean, who here finds it easy to talk to a stranger, to talk about anything, right? Can drop in and just be like, hold space and be compassionate for this person. Well, it's because there's no history, right? There's no unresolved resentments. So if I'm with my relationship, with my girlfriend, boyfriend, or my parents, there's things that are unresolved, unprocessed that's add to the trenches, right? So what do you say about like unprocessed emotions, right? All that stuff that's there.
It's unprocessed emotions. Marcella, she's saying she was trained in the 478 breathing technique. It's a trauma breathing technique.
Mm,
Yeah. And what is trauma really? It's kind of a popular name or term. Really, all it means is that our nervous system was overwhelmed at some point and we weren't able to process what we were feeling and what we were needing at the time. And so the beauty of triggers is that it brings it up in the moment to be healed. Triggers are these beautiful experiences that can be turned into teachers for us. And this is why I believe as couples or partners or families, we can become healing conduits to each other. It takes a little practice to get out of the automatic judgments and the thoughts that we have about the other person that we want to blame and shame. We don't want often to sit with our own emotions when we're in the trenches. We don't want to admit we're tired. We don't want to admit we're emotional. We don't want to admit we're angry. We've been taught to repress, suppress, deny, and do all sorts of interesting things. Eat, work, numb ourselves from these things. But as soon as you get comfortable breathing into with a breathing technique and observing the energy, because emotions are just energy as it's moving through you in this neutral way. It's what it does. It moves. It goes back into its motion. And we get insight. We're calmer. And instead of projecting those feelings and telling people, the people that trigger us, that elicit these feelings, they're not the cause of it, they're just the stimulus. The more we're able to appreciate what they bring into our lives, and the more that we're able to actually see them as Dre said, mirrors, which just means that they allow us to bring up the traumas that have been hidden or kept a lid on for a while so that we can now process them in the moment. And it takes a little bit of skill we haven't been taught, but it is a lot simpler than we've been led to believe. Right, Dre?
Mm. Yeah, exactly. I truly believe that people arrive for a reason, season, or eternity. And it's a different outlook of seeing these people as my Jedi trainers. It's so much gratitude that comes with it, that I'm thankful for these relationships, right? For the situation, as hard as that may be, right? Though it gives me that power, it empowers me to then look at myself from that. And that's within my control rather than wanting someone to change. Because if I say you're being so critical right now, right? Then I'm really giving my power away because I'm wanting you to change to be less critical versus, oh, what about that is eliciting in me what's coming up here, right? And just first of all, the language of let's regulate the nervous system first, calm the self down, and then we can keep this very simple because it's not about analyzing, figure out tips and strategies. There's so much ideas out there, to dos, right? That keeps me in my head, right? Because I'm trying to figure out a strategy and a formula to solve this problem. But really, it's about me being in touch with my body, and the language of my body is my emotions. And some of us might be afraid that, oh man, if I really feel these feelings, I'm going to blow a casket, right? It's not going to be good. All right. And I say, the reason why a lot of people numb is numbing is a result of handling an overwhelming amount of emotion that my body does not know how to handle or I don't know how to handle. Right. And we're not talking about blowing a casket, just releasing the pressure valve just a bit to source whatever emotion's present by naming it. Right. Because when I don't have the vocabulary or feelings, it's really hard for me to connect it with my intellect to create some understanding with it. So I'm like, okay, I'm feeling annoyed right now. Okay, why am I feeling annoyed? And then I connect it to my needs. Right. It's a very simple thing, but complicated because it's a paradigm shift. It's a different way of thinking and going about navigating the wisdom of what's within me here to be embodied. Right.
Hmm.
Yeah. Energy and motion. Emotion is meant to move. Right. It's called emotion for a reason. And it's meant to move through the body because itself carries wisdom. And if I just sit with it without the judgment and I breathe into it, most likely that emotion is going to shift to a different emotion. It's pretty cool how it works, right? Okay? It's not something I chose. It's something that was put into me, as they say in nonviolent communication, is that these feelings and needs is what's put into me. I didn't choose them to be there. They're just there. So they're kind of markers for me to explore about myself, explore what life is, right? Because when I go down the trail of connecting my feelings to my needs, I connect to life. I connect to humanity. I connect what it means to be a human being. It's such a beautiful thing.
It is a beautiful thing, indeed. And I just wanted to go back to triggers. She said, sometimes when triggers, it's a reflection of us. And some people I know will be like, well, I'm not like them. And I know what was funny about you recently, you're like, oh, you're being so critical right now. And the irony of that is the person who's saying that you're being critical is being critical. It's funny.
Right. I'm criticizing the
The
criticism.
criticizer. I know. That's funny. It's funny. It's amusing. Not all triggers are a direct mirror reflection. Sometimes, I always say it's kind of like, you go to Callaway Park or any of these theme parks and they have the house of mirrors and some of them are all really wonky or they're smoky. Sometimes if someone is, for example, an abuser or, is controlling, the other person, the mirror is more than, well, how do I give my power away then? Which is the inverse of what's triggering us. So there's different types of mirrors, different ways of seeing our reflection in others so that we can learn to become an authentic expression of ourself. So that we can show up in the world to feel a deep sense of meaning, contribution, excitement, community. I mean, we're here on the planet for a reason, aren't we? To live life, to be our best selves, to experience. And others really are able to give us a direct mirror of how to do that, of how to become a person that enlivens a room, that makes people feel safe, that makes people experience themselves as part of the one source that we're all from. How are we all these unique, beautiful threads to the same life-serving energy? This is the beauty of being able to communicate in this way. And I believe it's a pathway to empathy, but also telepathy, because we can tune into energy without judging it. Mm.
Yeah. And that's the power of being in the field is when I imagine myself in the field, I'm present, right? Because judgment takes me out of the present moment. I'm in my head. I'm thinking about something that was said in the past. But when I'm truly present, I am in tune with what's in the field. And if we believe that everything is energy, right? Then we're all in the same soup. That I can feel your energy. You can feel my energy. Has anybody walked into the room and felt like everybody was staring at them? Have you felt someone judging you, giving you the stink eye? It's the same thing. Or someone saying one thing, but then it feels like there's some jeepers creepers with it, and their actions are another. Right? It's a felt experience. Yeah. So if I'm in tune and I'm present in the moment, then the next step is, huh, what is this person might be feeling, and what are they needing? Right? If I can make a guess of that, I can help lead them into their life serving energy. And if someone is telling a story, okay, I get it. We all love stories, right? Though there might be a time where I'm stuck in the story and I'm just talking about my problem over and over again, right? And it's a place where I just want to be heard, right? There's times where I'm like, hey, I just want someone to listen to me. Let me vent. Cool. All right. Though if I'm also looking for support, if I'm wanting this person to support me, then they're going to help me get out of the story because the story is where I get stuck in my judgments, right? And the way to get out of the story is connecting to what I'm feeling and what I'm needing, right? It's looking at that to be like, what am I learning about myself in this story, right? So,
Yes, we tell stories, and it's all stories about ourselves. I love it. Marcella, I gave my power away long ago and lost myself going on a journey to self discovery, self care, self compassion, and
mm,
self love. Yes, it's such a powerful journey. It's exciting. I always tell people, because people are like, oh, this is terrible. Why is this happening to me? And I said, well, approach it like it's a movie, Indiana Jones, all those exciting places. It wouldn't be any fun if there weren't snake pits and exciting twists and turns in a jungle that they're going through. And emotionally, this is what we're going through. Um, and I believe our society has given it a bad rap because our bodies are innately intelligent. I actually believe that there's nothing that our bodies can't handle. It won't give us anything that we can't experience greater insight to and a greater experience of consciousness of ourselves, of our potential, of our ability to connect, to create, and to grow as individuals, but also as a species. We're all collectively connected to a higher source. We all heard of the 100th monkey. One monkey in one country learns to wash a potato with salt water, and then a week later, this other monkey, they weren't physically connected, is learning the same thing. Grade Braden talks about our antenna like the mycelium, this actual energetic field that connects us all. That's why we're learning so quickly and evolving so fast. We don't have to suffer anymore with what we call abuse, narcissists. All these labels are really social constructs. They're not real things. They're bound by our language, our judgments, our culture. But energy itself, the feelings and needs that live in our body is energetic information and data that's linked to source itself. It is the most potent healing force that we have. It's our original technology. We are the most advanced bioengineered technology there is. I really believe that. It's just that we're taught to source ourselves outside, to give our power away to someone or something else, which is actually literally the definition of addiction. Addiction means dictatorship. It means giving your power away to someone else. And we have this addiction to, oh, someone save me. Oh, let's get this new technology. Oh, let's do this. Oh, I need more information. I need more information. And we're always avoiding simply tuning in to the field of information that we are bathed in all of the time.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's overwhelming. And so this is how we start to build the capacity to be that conduit to energy without us fraying out, without being triggered, without going on the fritz. And so I believe this is the time where we're really learning how to do that, where we
Mhm.
don't blame others for the energy that's in our body. We go, oh, this is my body. This is in my body. How do I start using this intelligence that's in here?
Mhm. Yeah. It's a natural evolution, coming out of the emotional dark ages, right? We're not too
Yes.
far away from World War II and the atrocities of the early century there, right? So, just building the emotional intelligence, the vocabulary, feelings, and needs, getting connected to self, building nervous system capacity to hold more. Would you say it seems like life is happening quicker and quicker and quicker? Like it just
Definitely.
seems like, yeah, people are working more jobs, working longer hours. There's more things to do. There's more information. There's more things trying to take my attention and time away, right? So it's much more needed these days to look at oneself, because the more I look outside of myself, the more I continue on that hamster wheel. It's only going to accelerate my wake up call in some form or another.
Yeah, that's why so many people are in healing crises these days. It's going to take them out. And the only way out is in. You're right.
Mm.
It's too much. There's no way people are, the information age, just so much stuff. How do we disseminate what's true and what's real is by what resonates with us, with what we already know to be true based on our core makeup, our DNA, back to God, source. There's some creative life energy. When we have a heart attack, they re-enliven us through electromagnetic impulses, electromagnetic energy. This is what the field is made up of. And each one of us is a electromagnetic field that's housed in this body conduit. It appears separate, but it's not separate from the rest of the electromagnetic energy that makes up the world. And it's very exciting that we get to learn how to use it in a way that allows us to filter out outside information that isn't life-giving to us. But the only way we're going to be able to tell that is by tuning in and being willing to feel and to learn these new skills.
Yeah. And it's a journey, right? Everybody's at different stage through your journey. It becomes a practice because it's a new way of living, it's a new way of being. There's a journey called the emotional liberation, the three stages of it. And the first stage is like you make me feel like that everything outside of me is affecting my state, right? And we call that emotional slavery, that I'm not in control. Things outside of me are in control with how I feel and act, right? And then the next stage is like when I have some sense of authority, some empowerment, and it's called emotional obnoxiousness, where I'm setting boundaries left and right. I'm sick and tired of this stuff. I cut people off. You're toxic. You're a narcissist. And so I project that out to protect myself, right? And it's just a natural part of it. and that's okay. And I actually do like to see that happening in a way because I just know what's next. Because when I realize when I'm name calling people or putting blame outside of myself to just keep myself safe, yeah, it does work. Then I realize it actually only takes me so far, right? Because if I stay with the journey, the deeper it gets. And the next stage is emotional liberation, is when I realize that I'm not responsible for how I make people feel, but I am responsible for my actions, right? Responsible and aware of the impact that I make on the people around me, right? So I'm responsible with that insight and with that power to not like trigger people on purpose, right? And say, well, I can't make you feel anything, even though I'm twisting your nipple, pushing your buttons, right? On purpose to get an elicit and a reaction from you, but I can be responsible for it. Right? So then it's just a natural evolution as we begin to build a vocabulary of feelings and needs and being in touch with ourselves and create space with someone might be like, hey, where do I start? Well, just create space to be with yourself, right? It could be a minute, 5 minutes. It could be a whole variety of things: meditation, breath work, cold exposure, journaling. Start there and then work and it'll deepen. It'll deepen. At first I was afraid to look at myself. Now I love to look at myself because I've seen the rewards that came with it. Right. So it's just that courage to step into it and then start to get to know oneself because it is the path to sovereignty, the path to liberty, the path to freedom, the path to healthy relationships and getting out of the trenches is getting to know myself and how I'm impacting the people around me. Because if I'm in the trenches and I'm shooting the bullets, right, my judgments, all I need to do is put down the weapon. Or if I'm in the trenches and hunker down, all I need to do is get up and walk on the field. It's kind of like doing the exact opposite of what my saboteurs were doing to create a new neural pathway. Yeah.
Yep, because our mental weapons that cause those trenches are what actually literally create the outside world of war in our world, the division. When we don't feel, when we numb ourselves, like you said last time, Dre, men can easily go out in an actual field in the trenches and kill each other because they believe some other sentient being is their enemy. But it's a fabrication. It's a fear-based reality. And fear is there's a biblical statement, perfect love casts out fear. And so the more we learn to love, this even comes from David Hawkins in the scale of consciousness. The more we learn to love what is, to accept, honor, and trust, taking away the violent language that English really is and learning how to speak in a way that connects us with others, man, the exponential growth and the change that's possible on the planet, I can't even imagine right now. Like, it's pretty amazing the way that it is, but geez, the great
It's
thinker.
hope. Yeah.
What? It's home, it's whole?
No, I say it creates hope. Like
Hope,
that
yeah.
that there's a pathway, right, to get out of that emotional slavery and into emotional liberation. That there is light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah. To move away from the stories. Because when I can have intellectual recognition of that, then I can work into embodying it. So the intellect has its
Mm,
place. I
it does.
first need to understand it first. Then when I understand it, then I can begin to practice it and embody it in real life. And yeah, the source of conflict is stories, right? Like your story doesn't line up with my story.
And the thing is, it's not about the story at all. People argue. Who's talking about that last night? Well, that's not what I said. I said this. No, you didn't. I didn't say that. And we forget what we really say. It doesn't matter at any given time what someone said, what word they used, What matters is how they felt in the interaction. That's it. And to validate a person's experience, even if it wasn't your experience. You're just saying, I hear your experience. And I'm willing to see life through your eyes. And that's what we all want. We want to be seen. We want to be heard. We want to be validated. We want to be understood. Because when we are, we then know that we can trust people with our experience. And then there's so much different things that we get to create. We get to have fun. We get to play then. We don't have to protect ourselves from other people. We don't have to go to work and live in a grind of acting. So many people are just acting. Oh, I might get fired. My boss might do this. My wife might be upset over this. We don't ever often check in with people that what we're thinking is true. And most often it's not. It's really not. And so how can we be present with another's field? We're also attracted to that, which brings us into our own recognition. In yoga, we say namaste. I see the God, or the reflection of God is the same as the reflection of it in myself. And so this work is really about embodying that on a daily basis. Because we have all these spiritual ideas, and one of them is we're all one. People say that a lot. Yet when it comes to their daily relationships with parents or friends or ex-partners, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to cut them off and I'm going to ghost them, or I'm going to set up all these boundaries. And my shit's not your shit. That's yours. Well, I would say to people, if you have a reaction to anyone's behavior, something that triggers you, and you aren't able to stay neutral and aren't able to hold space to help that person experience themselves in the moment, then whatever part that you feel that makes you want to push them away or make them judge them, that energy is in your body. So you only need to look within your own body to understand what part of that is yours. What part of it is yours. Not all of what they do or what they behave or what they say is yours. It's whatever response your body's giving you that's yours. And with the trigger scale, for example, who wrote Getting to Zero? Jason Gaddis. He wrote a great book called Getting to Zero. So he uses a trigger scale from 0 to 10. The thing with triggers is that although we're saying you need to regulate yourself, it's really hard when you're really, really triggered. You become a self-cleaning oven over time, but when you're super triggered at a 10 scale and your oven is black and blue all over, it takes a lot of work to clean it out. It takes 24 hours for that body to start soothing itself. So when it comes to relationship and partners, usually from 0 to 4 or 5, we're mildly annoyed, irritated, disgruntled. We're doing these coping patterns of people pleasing or whatever it is that we do. We still have some capacity to regulate ourselves, to make a logical decision. When we go above a 5, when we start to lose our rational capacity to think, and the emotions are just spewing themselves out, we've lost control. It's often those things that we don't want to admit we do, that we're embarrassed about, when we name call, dissociate, all of those things. That's when, if 2 people are triggered, that's when the police are called, murder, all of those potential things happen, PTSD. But in a partnership where you learn to become this healing conduit and you start to recognize and start learning how to care for yourself, and you can observe that your partner is triggered, which just means it's an opportunity for healing. There's a trauma, and it's not about you. You get this opportunity to regulate yourself because you're the less triggered of the two, and become this conduit that creates the opportunity for this person to experience themselves and watch the energy, like Marcella had said, energy in motion that's in motion. If we're judging the other person, going, oh, you're crazy, you just threw that thing across the room, and you're blah, 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 it stops the energy from moving. It escalates it even further into a negative trench. But as we make space and we can drop into a place of neutrality, that hollow bone, that loving space, that's when triggered people really notice, because they have this heightened sense. Their nervous system is overwhelmed, it's misfiring. And then you offer this space. It's like closing the oven and letting it clean itself. It goes about its work. You don't need to say anything. It's your presence that speaks the loudest. And then that person doesn't have to worry about your judgments or your energy coming at them. They get to experience themselves in their own body. And the body then has its own innate intelligence, as long as we're not judging it. Super powerful.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, hello. Heart back.
Yes, it becomes a privilege to have this awareness, to be response able, my ability to respond in that moment that, oh yeah, I'm triggered right now. And perhaps my partner is triggered too. Though if I know that I have more capacity, that I'm less triggered, then I can regulate myself. Right. I can be that safe space. And it's not an intellectual exercise. It's felt. It's like really letting my nervous system calm down. Because my nervous system, when it's ratcheted up, other people can feel that. I can feel when someone's anxious and stressed because their body's talking to my body. And at all times, it's like, am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe at home? Am I safe at work? Or do I need to like block that and create mass? So this leadership ability is really to hold space for each other, to be healing conduits, to be a tuning fork. And that starts with the recognition, knowing that, yeah, am I in trenches or am I in the field? And if I'm in the trenches, do I have the capacity to regulate myself and be that safe space to regulate others around me? And we can move into the field. Yeah. So we're at time and wrapping up our conversations around that. Trenches, the field, these are analogies that work well for Summer and I and our students in our class as well. So um, we just wanted to share that with you and add some more context around that. Um, yeah, just war zones, right? Moving from a war zone into a grassy, sunny side field. And we'll be continuing this, sharing with you our insights. Comes up as we teach conscious communication every week. I'd love to share with you what comes and is alive in the field, so to speak. And catch us live. Catch us live on YouTube at Get Resourced, as well as on Facebook. Well, next time.
Every week, feel free to bring your questions, your thoughts, and we'll answer them.
Yeah.
See you next week.